Well, good evening, everyone. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to our second Middlesex County Roundtable. We had an event like this in the spring, and the format's going to follow much the same way. If you don't know who I am, my name is Kathy Burghardt-Jesson, and I am the Warden of Middlesex County and the Mayor of Lucan-Biddulph. And with me tonight, co-hosting, is our CAO, Bill Rayburn. So the two of us, as I said, hosted one of these in the spring, and really it's just a casual chat. And we're really thrilled with the guests that we have tonight. I'm certainly excited about the conversation that's going to take place. How are you feeling about things, Bill?
I'm pretty excited. We had a great time last time, such great participation from the attendees. We had record attendance and fantastic answers, and I'm hoping for a similar result tonight. We got a great lineup for them.
Yep, that's for sure. And, you know, for those of you that are watching, some of you are staff, some of you are council members from our partner municipalities. But, you know, we also have some people attending us from beyond the Middlesex County borders. And so we would like to welcome them as well and thank them for joining us tonight. So what are the rules, Bill?
Well, the first rule is that I have to tell you we're recording this because while there's a lot of participants here tonight, there's many folks we've heard of that just weren't able to join us tonight. We'd like to be able to provide them with a recorded version of this. And so that's rule number one. Rule number two is this is an interactive session. We want to hear your questions. The ministers want to hear your questions. So there's a Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen. Just push on that Q&A button. And I'm keeping track of the open questions, and we'll insert some of those throughout the night, as many as we have time for.
And hopefully we've got a few pre-planned questions, but hopefully we've got some time to get some dialogue going from those that are joining us. So I am really thrilled to be able to be joining our first guest. And she is no stranger to any of us. And she's just coming on now. So I will just wait 1 second as we work through our technical issues. And while I'm thinking of technical issues, I do want to thank our IT support staff that are joining us this evening to manage all of this, because it's no easy feat, that's for sure. Just wondering, Minister Elliott, if I see that you've joined us, if you could turn your video on so we could see you.
Yes.
There, wonderful. So I am thrilled to be able to introduce Minister Christine Elliott, who has so graciously agreed to join us for some time this evening. As we know, Minister Elliott is the MPP for Newmarket Aurora. She is the Deputy Premier, and of course, she is the Minister of Health. And like me, she is a proud boy mom. And she's very busy. And so, as I say, we're thrilled that she's been able to give up some of her precious time to join us this evening. I'm just going to go into it. I'm assuming you can hear me, Minister Elliott.
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So like other municipalities and counties across Ontario, Middlesex County and our lower tier municipalities received COVID financial support from the province that recognized the financial pressures we have experienced in long-term care, Ontario Works, early years, childcare, and land ambulance. And we really need to take a second and simply thank the province for having the foresight to anticipate and recognize these financial pressures. I'm sure that's a discussion and a conversation point that you've heard quite a lot over the last few months.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Yeah, so we certainly appreciate it, that's for sure. I want to start actually the line of questioning this evening on more of a personal note because I watched yesterday with much interest and surprised emotion the swearing in of Vice President Harris. This representation was a long time coming, and in many ways, Canada, Ontario, and our municipalities across the county have been far more progressive than our neighbors to the south when it comes to women in elected leadership positions. You are the Deputy Premier and the Minister of a very prominent ministry in the best of times, but these last 10 months have really spotlighted your role even more so. And when the briefings were daily, you were beside the Premier for each briefing, delivering tough messaging, and you continue to be a strong voice as we fight through this pandemic. So yesterday, as I watched the swearing in, I really thought of young women and young girls across our province and how they can look up to you as a strong, confident woman. You are a role model for them. And in light of yesterday's historic event and the role that you have, what advice or words of encouragement would you pass on to the young girls in Middlesex and then more broadly the province?
Well, it's very kind of you to say that, but what I would say to young women generally is to please think about getting involved in politics. I know for some people it seems that it's too adversarial, too controversial, but it's really important to have a woman's perspective so that you can make good decisions in government, because women and men sometimes have different views on different issues. And I know that you have a very strong women's caucus, and that's a wonderful thing to know about, because I think young women need to have somewhat of a base in order to get started. It seems very difficult on how to get involved and then what to do when you are involved. But we really do need more women in government. And yesterday, the swearing in of Vice President Harris was, I think, really meaningful to all of us. It's a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah, I was much more emotional actually than I thought I was going to be. It was quite something to watch, that's for sure.
Yes.
That's for sure. You brought up the County Women's Caucus, so I might as well kind of hit that one right now as well, since you brought it up. As you know, we just recently did form a county caucus, women's caucus, and it's something that we're really, really thrilled with. We're excited to see where this takes us. And of course, this all came about due to a conversation that we were privileged to have with the Lieutenant Governor in the fall. And we want to be a voice and advocate for women in the county. We have met with women across the county, and as to no surprise to you, we have found that women in Middlesex are experiencing what women across Ontario and Canada are. Women have been disproportionately affected by the economic fallout of the pandemic, and there are many issues that are affecting women. Job loss, a slower return to the workforce, limited childcare options, the balancing of working from home while at the same time managing schooling, and then in some cases having to be a caregiver for an older parent. And then, there's the increased chance of gender violence happening at home with the stresses that everybody's feeling, heightened anxiety, and of course, mental health fatigue. So how is the government going to address these cracks? I mean, they were always there, but the pandemic really has just highlighted it. And what would the plan be going forward for women, and how does the government plan on supporting them so that coming out of this, there still is a place for them to play in economic recovery?
Yes. Well, you're absolutely right. This pandemic has placed a significant burden on women. A lot of women are, first of all, in the healthcare field. Personal support workers, nurses, registered practical nurses, doctors, and they've had to be away from their families for long periods of time to protect their family's health. And then, of course, there are the mothers that are trying to work from home and doing homeschooling right now with their children. Honestly, I can't even imagine how some people do that. I think I'm fortunate my sons are now 29 and I don't need to worry about that. But it is very difficult for many women. So we have put a lot of thought and a lot of money into training programs for women, into making sure that we have anti-violence programs to protect women, because when families are close together in close quarters for long periods of time, unfortunately, that can be a result. And so we want to make sure that there are safe places for women to go if they need to. And so we've provided more housing and more opportunities for the shelters financially to be able to continue to do their great work. So this is something that is top of mind, particularly for Minister Jill Dunlop, who is the minister responsible for women and children, the associate minister, and she's doing a fantastic job on those issues. Sometimes they merge with what's going on in health as well. So it's something that's top of mind for all of us because we want to make sure that we can all get through this pandemic safely and remain healthy.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You know, I just want to say before I hand it over to Bill, because I know he's got a couple of questions of his own, but certainly the Middlesex Women's Caucus will support you where we can. And if we can be a partner in any sort of recovery plan, we would be happy to do so.
Thank you very much. That's very much appreciated.
Minister, we have a question from the Q&A group, participant Tom Heeman of Heeman's Fame. Quick advertisement, their family makes the best dill pickles in Ontario, so I'll make sure that next time at Queen's Park, I'll drop off some of those to you.
Thank you.
Not surprisingly, Tom has a question related to farm workers, and he says, are there considerations for additional phase 2 vaccine rollout priorities for higher risk essential populations, such as food and farm workers?
Yes, absolutely. As you would know, we have our vaccine task force that's been comprised that Minister Sylvia Jones and I are heading, but General Hillier has taken the lead role in coordinating our response for vaccinations. We're in phase 1 right now, and we've placed a priority on the residents of long-term care homes and outbreaks in retirement homes as well, and the staff and essential visitors, family members for the most part, that are there. I can tell you that we did have great success in that all of the long-term care homes in the 4 original hotspot areas of Toronto, York, Peel, and Windsor-Essex were completed in advance of their original date. So we're moving forward with that. But as you know, we have received notice from Pfizer that our supply is going to be delayed while they retool their plant in Belgium. That's where we receive our supply from, not the United States. And so we will be moving forward as quickly as we can with phase 1. Then we will get into phase 2, and that will be sorting out the essential workers that will then be receiving the vaccinations, and certainly making sure that our food supply and the food supply chain is kept unperturbed is going to be very important. So I can tell you that farm workers, farm owners are going to be considered near the top of the list for that. That hasn't been completely decided upon yet. But it is something that is top of mind for all of us because we need to make sure that everyone has access to a food supply as they are staying at home for the next few weeks and thereafter as well.
Yes, thank you, Minister. And I'd be remiss, I know you visited with our land ambulance team so many times, and we greatly appreciate every time you come to join us. And I would be remiss if I didn't. Chief Roberts is on the panel today, or on the as an attendee today, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that you and the Premier has mentioned several times the role that Middlesex London Paramedic Services community paramedicine has played in helping with the pandemic. And I just wonder about your thoughts for everybody on the role of community paramedicine, not only in helping with the pandemic, but also going forward post-pandemic and in helping with vaccination. Do you have thoughts about their role?
Well, yes, absolutely. Community paramedicine is absolutely integral to all of the work that we're doing throughout this pandemic, and Chief Roberts and the team at Middlesex London is doing a fantastic job. I understand that they have outfitted an old London transit bus as well to do testing in the community. This is fantastic, really innovative thinking, and I really want to commend the entire team. But as you know, that community paramedicine has been helping with in some of the long-term care homes, as well as dealing with at-home clients as well, both in terms of testing, but in terms of vaccinations going forward as well. That's a team that hasn't always received a lot of credit, but we certainly know about the great work that's being done. And we want to expand that both during the pandemic, but of course beyond that as well. Because I can tell you there are many, many fans across Ontario of community paramedicine.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate your support going forward and your past support. They greatly appreciate it. Warden?
You know, you brought up long-term care and you've mentioned it a few times, and certainly the
Mhm.
impact of vaccine distribution to long-term care homes will mean great things. And I guess, you know, I think the province has set a target date of beginning of February, so of all long-term care to receive their
Yes.
vaccination. In Middlesex, we're happy to say that that'll be completed, I believe, by the end of the week. The health unit has said that they're on target for that. But I guess in thinking of lockdowns and restrictions, how do you see the rollout of the vaccine playing in lifting some of the restrictions that are on long-term care? We know that it's such a stress for families not to be able to see their loved ones and
Yes.
interact with them as you know, as they would like.
Well, we certainly realize how important it is for, first of all, people to be protected, but then to make sure that their essential caregivers, usually family members, will be able to have access to see them after they have themselves been vaccinated. That is something that was very unfortunate during the first wave. We've learned some lessons from that, and we know that these essential caregivers need to get in there to see their family members and to provide some of the help and support to the staff members that are already there with the care of their, in the most case, parents.
Yeah, for sure. Got another personal question for you. Do you enjoy being the Minister of Health? I mean, it's probably not what you thought it was going to be when you first signed up for the role.
Well, it certainly isn't what I expected, but I can say that I do enjoy it, which may sound unusual, but it's a huge challenge, but also a huge opportunity, because as General Hillier says to us frequently, that rare is the dark cloud that doesn't have a silver lining. And what I mean by that is we've been able to move forward the transformation of our healthcare system by some of the things that we've needed to do during the pandemic, things like virtual healthcare, which was at about 2% before the pandemic started. It's at 50% now. That to me is truly patient-centered care that people can have access for some routine matters. Of course, there will be some situations where they will need to see their physician or nurse practitioner, whoever it happens to be. But we've been able to move forward with some of that work, and also with the creation of Ontario Health. I'm very grateful that that happened before the pandemic started, because trying to coordinate 14 separate LHINs would have been extremely difficult. So we were able to move things forward very fast with the Ontario Health organization, as well as the local Ontario Health teams that are already on the ground. So we're moving forward with the transformation. We're moving forward with our mental health agenda, because we know that there are significant mental health effects as a result of the pandemic. People being isolated, alone in their own homes or apartments. They may have lost their jobs. They have significant stresses, financial stresses as well. We just released our roadmap to wellness, our comprehensive mental health and addictions plan, several weeks, just a few weeks before the pandemic started. But that has a lot of relief there as well, including virtual visits for mental health consultations. And that again is something that we want to continue with, to make sure that every part of Ontario has access to high quality mental health services.
Very important. Bill?
Minister, when our last session that we had, Minister Clark joined us, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and he was talking to us about how his experience as CAO in a municipality really helped him as Minister of Municipal Affairs. You have incredible experience up and down your career that's helpful in this, but how did the role of patient ombudsman help in your current role?
It was really important because even though I'd spent a number of years as health critic and was looking at what we were doing with health in Ontario, it was really when I was patient ombudsman and I was speaking directly to patients and their families about their experience that I realized that we don't truly have a patient-centered system of care in Ontario right now. And that is a goal for me. It's very important. We are really working more with organizations and institutions, but not really with the best quality patient experience. And so that is vital to me. That's why I am continuing with the Patient and Family Advisory Committee, which was a temporary situation before I became Minister of Health. But I have a great, Betty Lou Christie is a woman who has had significant personal experience with mental health and addiction problems. She lost her son a number of years ago. She is there with some other people to give us good advice and to make sure that with all of the local Ontario health teams that we are putting into effect now, that the patient experience and patient satisfaction is going to be central to everything that we do. So it's a very important issue for me, but that was really highlighted to me when I was patient ombudsman and has stuck with me ever since.
Thank you so much. The Q&A group is asking a lot of questions about vaccines, so I'll try to tie some of them together into one question, and we'll see how that goes. We had a question about from Frank Kennis, actually, who's one of our councillors in Middlesex, and he was asking about, first of all, will there be any new vaccines approved in the near future for use in Canada? And then the other question we got from Daniel Regan, which is, will we be allowing pharmacies to administer the vaccines in order to expedite the process and relieve pressures on healthcare providers, i.e. nurses? So there's two vaccine questions for you.
Sure, great questions. Right now, we only have 2 vaccines that we're approved to use. The Pfizer vaccine that you've heard a lot about in terms of the limited numbers coming into us over the next few weeks, but also the Moderna vaccine. We are getting shipments of that vaccine as well, which is very good in the sense that it doesn't have to be stored at the extremely low temperatures that the Pfizer vaccine has to be stored at. But we're also very hopeful that the AstraZeneca vaccine will also be approved soon by Health Canada. I know that they received the basic package from AstraZeneca and had a few more questions that they wanted to ask. And even though I know it has already been approved in the UK, I think there was some concern that Health Canada need to do a deeper look at it. AstraZeneca does come from the UK, and there were some that said that maybe it wasn't reviewed as deeply as it should have been. I can't really comment on that except to say that I know that Health Canada is taking a very hard look at it, as they did with Pfizer and Moderna, because we want to make sure that any vaccines that we are going to be using are going to be first of all safe, and secondly effective. So we are working on that. I've spoken with the Federal Minister of Health, Minister Haidu, about the AstraZeneca vaccine, and she tells me that Health Canada is doing their work through it. They have to do their due diligence, and it's not something that you can rush. Secondly, on the issue of pharmacists doing the vaccinations, yes, of course. And we're especially thinking about some of the mass vaccination clinics that we will be holding once we received much larger quantities of vaccines in Ontario. And we're ready to ramp up. Right now, we can do we're doing about 15, 20,000 a day. When we get much larger quantities, we can go up to 40,000, ultimately up to about 150, 160,000 per day. And so we need a lot of health professionals in order to be able to help with those mass vaccination clinics. And we recently changed some regulations to allow both nurses, registered nurses and registered practical nurses to vaccinate not under the direct supervision of a nurse practitioner or physician, which is currently the case, as well as allowing pharmacists to do these vaccinations. They already do the flu vaccines, but they've been specifically authorized to do these vaccinations for COVID, as well as their interns and pharmacy technicians who are also receiving special training. So we really need all hands on deck when we start into these large vaccination clinics, and pharmacists are very well equipped to deal with that.
While we're on the topic of vaccines and the rollout, I mean, Middlesex County, we're very close to the 401. We're very close to a large urban center, but we do have rural pockets. And of course, the further north that you move in the county, the further remote you are. So, and we've got people joining us from across the province. And I guess the question would be the timing and the distribution and the challenges that you're going to face with a vaccine rollout for rural Ontario. And that I think that question about pharmacists is very timely in that they could have a real role in rural Ontario distribution.
Absolutely. And the vaccine task force is in direct contact with the public health unit because they are the ones that know the local conditions, and they're advising what supports they need, how they see that the vaccine could best be rolled out. And so your local public health unit is in touch with General Hillier and his team to understand that, so that when the vaccines come in large quantities, that we will be able to get them into the people's arms as quickly as possible.
For sure.
Warden, we have a number of, vaccines are obviously a hot topic tonight, Minister, and just one last one. There's about 3 questions that I'll roll into one here, but it really relates to the new strains and that we're seeing of the pandemic or of the virus. And I guess they're asking about how concerned you are about those new strains. And is our pandemic something we should get used to, rolling pandemics or at least rolling vaccinations for COVID into the future, and what your thoughts are about that future?
Well, we are concerned about the variants coming in. We know that we have some of the UK variant in Ontario right now. We're trying to have it dealt with case management to try and keep it from spreading, because it is very concerning. The UK variant is about 55 to 60% more transmissible than the basic COVID-19. And we're very concerned about transmission in the community. That's one of the reasons why we've had to move forward with the emergency declaration and the stay-at-home order, because we really need to get the numbers down and try and stop the transmission of COVID-19 as well as the variant, because some of the modeling that we've had done has indicated that our hospitals could become overwhelmed in the not too distant future if we don't get the numbers down. And that's something that I think is of concern to everyone, because we have over 400 people right now in our intensive care units across the province with COVID, many of whom are on ventilators. And we need to make sure that we can maintain the capacity in our hospitals for people that have to come in inadvertently into our intensive care units, whether by reason of a heart attack or a serious car accident. We need to be able to take care of everyone that needs access to our care, intensive care, as well as trying to deal with some of the other procedures and surgeries that were slowed down during the first wave and we haven't quite caught up on yet. So there's a lot of pressure on our system right now, and we need to get the transmission down, the number of people down with COVID-19, so we can address all of those other issues. But I would say also, in addition to the UK variant, there is one from the South African variant, as well as 2 coming from Brazil. We don't know that much about them yet. We don't know if they can be treated by the vaccines that we have available. The UK variant can, but more work is being done on a daily basis to understand the other variants that are coming forward. And then in terms of dealing, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I think your other question was about dealing with pandemics in the future and how we deal with COVID going forward. I hope we don't have any other pandemics that we have to deal with, but the reality is that we will need to continue vaccinating people for COVID. We don't have a vaccination available for young people under 16 right now. So as people turn 16 for one, 18 for the other variety of vaccine, that we will need to have the vaccines available for them to make sure that they can be protected and stay healthy. And I guess as well, for any people that don't want to receive the vaccine right now, they're a little bit concerned about side effects. They don't know enough about it yet, that we're hoping that we can persuade them to receive the vaccine. And then there will be other people that don't want the vaccine under any circumstances, and that's fine. It's a voluntary situation. People are not required to have the vaccine. But again, I think there's more public information that needs to come forward, more information about the safety and efficacy of the vaccines that hopefully will dispel some of that concern going forward.
Thank you. Minister, you know the warden that I work with pretty well, so you'll know that when this pandemic started, she said to me, the system's going to be under stress, Bill. It's going to create all kinds of lessons for us. It's going to teach us where we need to improve on a daily basis, and she wasn't wrong. She makes us keep a journal of, hey, we learned this today about what it's like to operate in a pandemic environment. And I'm wondering about, at the provincial level, I know there's been so many lessons learned, but are you anticipating that coming out of the pandemic, there will be a roundtable and a report and lessons learned that we can all use to provide better public services in the future?
Absolutely. We have learned a lot of lessons. And as you will probably remember, in November 2019, I know it seems like almost a lifetime ago, we did ask Mr. Jim Pine to consult with municipalities and hear their views about some of the changes we were proposing to make at that time to public health. We hope that that will continue once we are over the worst of the pandemic, because we know that the local public health units are not really able to deal with that right now. They've got enough to deal with in terms of testing and getting organized for vaccination. But I would say that we do need to regroup once we are through the worst of this, because there are also lessons learned provincially. One of the lessons that we have learned is that we needed to build up a provincial lab network. Before this started, we were only able to do 3,000 or 4,000 tests per day. And we've built a network from community providers, hospitals, as well as Public Health Ontario in order to be able to do the testing that we need to do. We can right now test up to 94,000 people per day, which is a much greater number than we started with. And we need to make sure that we continue with that and to maintain our discourse with local public health units as well on the work that they're doing. The work is absolutely essential in dealing with a whole number of factors, but we need to make sure that we stay in touch and deal with the issues that local communities are facing, as well as some of the provincial issues as well.
Okay, great. I think you've been so generous with your time, Minister Elliott. I know that there's one question from one of our councillors in the Q&A. Bill, maybe you might want to ask that, and then we can let Minister Elliott on her way. I've got one little wrap-up question for her, though.
Okay. This question comes from Alan Mayhew, and since his name is one of the names at the bottom of my checks, I better ask this one, Minister. The volunteer communities have been stellar during our efforts to mitigate the stress of the coronavirus. They've put themselves at risk for no monetary reward and unselfishly give without question. They have fed, clothed, and emotionally supported those in need. Can the provincial government recognize volunteer organizations in some manner by way of an official statement, vaccination status, or some other creative process?
Absolutely. I think that we would not be able to do much of the work that gets done in Ontario without volunteers. I am a strong believer in volunteerism, and volunteer organizations have stepped up mightily in this fight against COVID-19. So we can certainly issue something to recognize and thank volunteer organizations for the support that they give. And I can also ask Premier Ford if he would single them out as organizations to be thanked, as as he would say, as the true champions that they all are, because we certainly recognize the incredible value that comes from volunteer organizations. And I would say that's how I got involved in politics in the first place, was in my role as a volunteer with a number of organizations when I was the member for Whitby Oshawa before that. And so I know a little bit about the work that volunteers do, but I do know for sure about the tremendous contribution that volunteer organizations make.
Well, and certainly in the last 10 months, we've just seen some real shining stars. There's no question.
Yes.
So as I said, you've been so generous of your time, but I did want to ask you this question, since you've got an audience of municipal leaders, and we are here to support you. And I guess I'm thinking, how can we support this government, your ministry, in a post-pandemic review, or in the months going forward? What is it that you need from us?
Well, thank you for asking, first of all, but I think it's really important that that you continue to, first of all, work with your public health units. That's going to be very important. And if you can help with, once we get to the point of having the mass vaccination clinics, if there are any places that municipally that could be made available, community centers, arenas, wherever, where we could have large numbers of people coming in and going out, that would be extremely helpful, because we aren't going to get 14 and 3/4 million people vaccinated without having some of these large organizations getting involved, in municipalities, as well as any volunteers. Again, thanking volunteers for the work that they do, because not everything is going to be medical. They're just having people coming and going, being able to have drinks, coffee, whatever. I know that the nurses need to watch for 15 minutes after people receive a vaccination to make sure that there is no adverse health effects, but there's also lots of jobs that volunteers can do as well. So if you're able to help with that, that would be greatly appreciated.
Well, I'm sure that many of us are up to that task, and we're here to help you whenever that time comes. So I do want to thank you for joining us, Minister Elliott. It's been great chatting with you. I've had a number of opportunities over the years to meet with you in a delegation setting, through various conferences, or, as Bill mentioned earlier, your visits to paramedic services and that sort of thing. So it's great to have this extra time with you, and we certainly appreciate it. And so thankful that you were able to join us tonight.
Thank you. Well, it's been a great pleasure to join you, and I hope that I will be able to see you all in person soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.
Yeah. Good night.
Thank you.
Warden, our next guest is Monty McNaughton, and we'll, of course, our local minister, and he's joining us just right now. There he is. As I said last time, the favorite son of Newbury is here again. It's nice to have you, Monty. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I know Minister Urick's going to be here, and I listened in to Minister Elliott. Great conversation.
Yeah, it was great that she was able to join us. As they say, everybody's time is so precious. And of course, you and your colleagues have been taxed in ways that I don't think you might necessarily been prepared for when you took on the roles that you did. So I guess my first question to you is, how are you holding up, Monty? And I feel I can call you Monty because I feel that
absolutely. Yeah,
maybe Minister Monty. Are we supposed to be more formal?
No, just Monty's great. First, hi to everybody on the call. I know this call is going out across the province, and I know there's a number of past wardens, past Middlesex councillors, current councillors, and others.
Welcome.
Hi to everybody out there. Certainly, and I know Jeff Urick will say the same thing. I mean, none of us knew a year ago that COVID-19 was going to hit the province. Certainly from the ministry that I'm responsible for, labor training and skills development, it's sort of a double-edged sword. I mean, obviously on the health and safety side, extremely overwhelmed right now, because let's face it, there are a number of workplaces that have breakouts, and we're doing everything in our power to prevent COVID-19 from getting into any type of workplace. And then on the training side, the economy has been hit quite hard. I mean, I think the other day I checked, 250,000 people are out of work in Ontario, mostly in the hospitality and tourism industry. So I'm proud we have moved really quickly to launch a second career program where we're getting people in to a training program close to home and getting them a job close to home. So it's sort of a double-edged sword on the labor side and then on the economic side and the training side.
Is it true, Monty, that your ministries spent a lot more time on preparing for skilled trades and for these training programs? It seems like I'm seeing more advertisements than ever before. My son who's 16, as you know, is asking me about, hey, is this an option for me? What a great program that you've put out there. Why don't you talk a little bit about that for those that don't know about that program?
Yeah, really excited about our government's mission to get more young people into the skilled trades. I really see this as a benefit for our rural communities, our communities across Middlesex, and really in every community across the province. Most young people don't realize that there's 144 different skilled trades to choose from. Many of them pay 6 figures, they have pensions, they have benefits. But I think the real exciting opportunity is that there's literally tens of thousands of these positions available today for people. So one of the things that our government is doing, in September, we're going to send recruiters into every high school across the province to really compete head on with university recruiters. So they'll go in, they'll talk about the skilled trades and really tell students how they can become, a boilermaker, a carpenter, a chef, an arborist. I mean, there's just so many to choose from, and many young people just don't know how to get into these careers. Lastly, we're also going to be starting the skilled trades as early as grade 1. There'll be a number of curriculum changes coming forward where we'll introduce, obviously at very basic levels, but the skilled trades as early as grade 1. So really excited about this. We have to stop telling every single student that they need to go to university. There are other pathways out there that are meaningful, fulfilling, pay well. So that's the mission that we're certainly on.
Our audience is wondering, Warden, whether or not that extends to the agricultural sector. They're saying that farm jobs, processing jobs, fruit, vegetable, and abattoir jobs, all of those need training. And that includes that sector, right, Monty?
Yeah, so absolutely. We'll have some really good news. We're partnering with, I know, the grain farmers, OFA, a number of agricultural group to really highlight the skilled trades available in agriculture. Also, just the amount of jobs available on our farms and in food processing plants. So that'll be a big priority in the next number of weeks. We'll be highlighting that.
You talk about the jobs that are available. I mean, you can just look at the job boards across Middlesex County and how employers are just screaming for that sort of skilled labor. So I think it's great, the work that you're doing. And certainly from the ag side of things, I think this pandemic has only highlighted, the whole need for a more localized food processing and food availability. So it's great that you're open to, working with OMAFRA, I'm sure, and extending all of everything that you're doing with your ministry. And I have to say, you're doing a good job because I follow you on social media, and you and your daughter built a tree house this summer. So, you started her with a drill. So,
well, I'm looking for my next job after politics. So I may end up picking up a career in the skilled trades.
There you go. While we're talking about workplaces, I have to ask you, you and I have talked about this over the last number of last number of months. And I guess it's kind of the flip side of that. The work that we did with our Middlesex Economic Resiliency Task Force during the height of the lockdown and what we were experiencing in late spring, early summer. And, everybody agrees. Everybody wants a safe workplace. We want our employees protected. But from an employer standpoint, how are we ensuring that employers know what they need to do and what they need to provide to ensure that the protocols are in place? Like, work is so important, and we have to celebrate work, and we have to support our employers just as much as we're supporting our employees.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, there's no doubt overwhelming majority of employers have done a great job throughout this pandemic. They've stepped up. They've put in all of the protocols. One of the things we did early on in the pandemic, and I've got to thank my team that really worked day and night on this with a number of partners. But they put out about 200 guidance documents and posters and tip sheets and videos. I mean, in like a dozen different languages as well, which is really important on the agricultural side for the migrant workers. But it's free of charge to any business of any type. It's available at ontario.ca/COVID safety. And we've done 35,000 investigations and inspections of workplaces. I can tell you overwhelmingly, we've taken an education first approach to go in, and especially during the first wave and during the summer, of actually proactively helping businesses get set up. Now we're really getting strategic. We're going into workplaces where there's more outbreaks. So we're focusing on agri-food businesses, food processing plants, because there's been some issues there. We are going to proactively go out to greenhouses where they have migrant workers that'll be coming very soon. Going into the retail stores that are open right now, factories. I mean, really strategically going into where there's problems. But all in all, employers have stepped up. And it's back to what the Premier always says: we have to keep working together, workers, managers, supervisors, and owners of businesses.
Your ministry started, I guess it was primarily in the GTHA area on the weekend, going into the larger retailers that have the privilege, I guess, of being open. Do you see that extending to other hotspots and beyond in the province?
Yeah, so you're referring, I did launch a big box blitz on Saturday and Sunday in Toronto and Hamilton. 50 inspectors went into 242 big box stores. Those also include the big box grocery stores. We've moved that this week to be province-wide. So, for example, I know this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, there's going to be dozens of inspectors going into big box stores in London, in Windsor, but we will be in every community. Now, in saying that, I mean, we are into every other workplace every day as well. I mean, my job right now is to be into those workplaces that are open during this 28-day period, to ensure that they're pre-screening staff, socially distancing, sanitizing, those types of common sense things. But yeah, we are moving that province-wide.
Good to know.
Monty, as a former Minister of Infrastructure, I have a question from your hometown. Well, not, I guess, Newbury, but anyways, I think you live close to him anyways, Alan Mayhew. He's asking the question: many provincial grants to municipalities require the endorsement of the federal government following provincial approval. What progress are you making to streamline the provincial federal process to support timely infrastructure improvements, and what appears to be a delay at the federal level?
Yeah, I know there are many councillors on this call waiting for federal approval of a number of infrastructure projects that the province has recommended. I agree. I mean, I agree with you, Alan. These need to move along much more quickly, with much less politics involved. When we actually inherited this agreement between the municipalities, province, and federal government. I think it was signed back in 2015, and we started rolling out this or nominating projects shortly after the 2018 election. But I hear you. We're pressing hard. There's a lot of vital infrastructure, exciting infrastructure projects as well for Middlesex County, and we're just waiting for the federal government to approve them.
Warden Administrator, we have a video I want to show you from a friend of all of ours, a good friend of Middlesex County. We asked the Premier a little bit about the future of economic development after the pandemic, and I'll get your reaction after you hear a few words from the Premier.
Our top priority continues to be protecting the health and safety of the people of Ontario. And as we battle through COVID-19, we're laying the groundwork for our economic recovery. We're helping small businesses during these tough times through the all-new Ontario Small Business Support Grant, which provides a minimum of $10,000 and up to $20,000 for businesses' costs. The application and the portal is open right now, so I encourage everyone to go on it at ontario.ca/COVID support. That's ontario.ca/COVID support. Broadband is also an important priority. You know, we've committed an additional $680 million to improve and expand broadband and in unserved areas and underserved communities. This brings our total broadband investment to $1 billion.
Monty, I know those words ring true to you, but I'm interested in your thoughts of the impact of the election in the US and on the economy in Southwestern Ontario, new announcements at CAMI, all of those things I know are discussed around the cabinet table. Tell us a little bit about your local view of economic development post-pandemic.
Well, I'm glad the Premier mentioned broadband. It is one thing I wanted to bring up, and proud to say that we made the historic announcement in Lucan back a year ago summer, I think it was a while ago now. And locally, sorry?
I think it was 2019,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was when Curtis Smith was warden. Yeah.
So great. That was a great day. And I mean, look, broadband can't be built and installed fast enough. I get that. But in saying that, I mean, there's shovels in the ground everywhere. I think of, you know, our neighbors in Lambton. I think of the projects that are going to come here in Middlesex and other rural areas in the province. So that's good. I think secondly, the natural gas expansion. I can highlight two projects in my riding in near Thamesville and Dresden. It was a small investment from the province. The gas companies kicked in, but it was literally like maybe $3 or $4 million from the province. $500 million worth of greenhouses are going to be built because of natural gas going to that area. So when I think in terms of infrastructure, I think in terms of, you know, getting that investment, it really does help businesses. I think there's a huge opportunity for farms to grow and agri businesses to grow. Again, you know, the skilled trades is a huge opportunity for young people. And I really think the second career program is going to be really effective post-pandemic to get people that are impacted by the pandemic out of work, and quickly within 40 or 50 weeks, they'll be retrained, they'll have a certification, and we'll literally place them into an in-demand job in their own community. So really great things. On the automotive side, I mean, I work closely with Unifor and Jerry Diaz. I mean, they've truly stepped up to ensure, you know, that the investments being made. There'll be news that the province has been a huge contributor to some of these investments, and our Minister of Economic Development, Vic Fideli, has really spearheaded these negotiations. So, you know, everybody's worked together on this, but the return of the automotive industry is great news for all of us here in Middlesex County and in Southwestern Ontario. It's going to be a huge boost. I will say, I mean, I'll be frank, I'm really happy with a new president south of the border, but it will present a challenge for Canada because we're so involved on the skills side of things in our ministry. Under the former president, there was an exodus of people from the United States to Canada, which actually helped us in the IT sector and some of these high skills businesses. It'll be more challenging now with the new president, so we'll have to ensure that we're, you know, more competitive to attract talent.
You've hit a lot of things there, and funny making notes. I got to follow up with this, got to follow up with that. You know, going back to the broadband, I mean, you know, that how many times that topic has been brought up across Middlesex County and the issues that so many pockets have. You know, and I guess we can't lose sight of how this pandemic has highlighted that across the province. You know, we've been asked to work at home, we've been asked to school at home, and it's really putting demands on families. And before, the answer would be, you know, there needs to be a business case for you know, technology companies to come in and look after the last mile, or look after areas where there might only be 17 homes. Certainly, I think the investment that the province has made, and the how this has been highlighted, how underserviced so many residents have been. Fingers crossed that the private sector will jump on board and partner so that all residents can be serviced properly, and that there's no inequality there.
Yeah, and I thought there was a good article the other day I read. I mean, for the first time in 50 years, Toronto had a mass exodus of people coming, you know, relocating outside of Toronto, 55,000 people. But I agree, this broadband piece is the most essential infrastructure piece in my mind that we have to get right.
Yeah, for sure.
Warden, we are privileged to have the Minister of Environment, Jeff Urich, join us. And it's kind of ironic that the next question the last question we're going to ask you, Monty, before you go, is from Bob Purcell, a good friend from Elgin County, down in Jeff's neck of the woods. And he was asking a question about apprenticeship programs, and he really wanted to know, do you think that there'll be apprenticeship programs for municipal workers, roads and sewer and water in the future? He thinks that's an area where you could really help municipalities. So maybe you could give some thought to that.
Sure, great. Always open for new ideas. So thanks for that.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate your time tonight, Monty. Great to have you. You're welcome to stay. I know you have some other engagements you have to do, but we really appreciate your time today.
We saved the best for last.
Exactly. We got the man at the last. That's right.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks,
you.
Monty. Good to see you.
Great. Good luck, Jeff.
Oh, he doesn't need luck. We're not that tough.
Sure.
Jeff, thanks for joining us. It's every time we do one of these, we get a new window in your house. So this is great. Remember last year when you were on the floor trying to connect to us? That was fantastic. It's memorable.
I charged my computer this time. We're good to go.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
You're prepared. You're prepared. So it's great that you could join us, Jeff. It's always wonderful to see you, and that you've made the time to speak to us for a few minutes. So I'm going to start off, ask you the same question I asked Monty. How are you doing?
I think I'm doing as well as everyone else there. We're adjusting to this lifestyle that none of us want. And we're, latching onto our support structure. I have my wife and my daughter and my dog in the house with me, and that keeps me going. And, we keep doing our part so we can end this lockdown and end these restrictions and return to normal life. So I hope you're doing as well as I think I am. It's great. It's great to actually have these types of events that you're putting on, because you're reaching out and actually talking to people. And your family does get sick of you talking every now and then, so it's good to have these talks.
I know. My family, yes. They were very happy when I said that I was going to go to the municipal office to do this meeting tonight, because they're tired of watching me conduct my business at home. But, it's certainly difficult and trying times. And as I say, who would have thought we would be in this as long as we are? But we certainly appreciate the support that you've shown our community over the last number of months. I think the last time I saw you was part of your physical fitness challenge when we were horseback riding.
Yeah, with Delaney. Yeah, Delaney did a great job too.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was a great experience, and I encourage everyone to. We do it in August. Get out and do something new out in the environment to enjoy nature, and invited to go horseback riding. It was quite an experience. I'll do it again.
Oh, good. Well, sign me up. I'd be happy to join you for one of your events, that's for sure. You know, I guess getting right into it, what do you think the biggest challenge is facing your cabinet, you know, in the next few months and then into recovery?
Well, I think, I mean, you've had Christine on and Monty, and, you know, my viewpoint from what's barriers to get through to focus on is, you know, get this vaccines out, ramped up again once we get the supply back. General here is as places set up across the province, and I know Middlesex will receive their share in the rollout, depending on phase 2 or 3 of where we're at. So getting more people vaccinated where we could ensure we have at least the vulnerable populations. We're doing long-term care, retirement homes. We need to do other conjugate settings and start some of our seniors. Once you finalize, get those folks vaccinated, it makes it a lot easier to start reducing some of those restrictions and getting back to normal life. It kind of takes away, I feel, from the need for further lockdowns if we have those folks that we're worried about right now protected. So getting the vaccines out, getting the kids back in school, and then, you know, focusing on getting our economy up and running again and maintaining our healthcare system. I think that's going to be the focus of cabinet over at least the next 5-6 months.
Minister, I know that you know that we have a lot of municipal folks on the line. We have some people that are on conservation authority boards. It's certainly something that's been in the news a lot. I just want to give you the opportunity to talk about a couple of things related to conservation authorities. The importance of the changes that are being made from your perspective, some of the challenges with implementing those changes, and what we can expect sort of as we move through the spring with those changes.
Certainly, yeah, and thanks very much. I received quite a bit of comments across the province on the changes, and nothing was unanimous that came across my desk. So that's always a good way to have a conversation. So, you know, we made changes to Conservation Authority, and basically the reasons why we did so to add in some accountability, transparency, and then to really ensure that conservation authorities are prepared to deal with the ever ongoing changes in our environment as we deal with climate change, and being able to adapt and protect and ensure that we're looking after the people in our areas. You know, we pushed through that legislation, and now it's time to implement. And this month, I announced a new advisory council that's going to be chaired by the CEO of Halton Conservation, Hassan Bassett. He's put together an advisory team to go over the new pieces of legislation, and it's an advisory council made up majority of conservation authorities. There's municipal representation, there's agriculture representation, and there's developer representation. So they're tasked within the next 3 to 6 months, depending on how quick they get through it, to come out with a plan of the best way to implement not only the new regulations that go along with the changes in the legislation that's going to work and benefit both municipalities and conservation authorities, and in return, the people of the province. But also it's going to be coming out with a way to standardize and ensure that the governance amongst all the conservation authorities is at the best. And I find I've met with quite a few conservation authorities, and I have to say Hassan runs a really tight ship and gets results for his community. So I'm proud to have him as chair. So those will be coming forward. Then we'll be moving forward through the typical process of regulation. But we hope by the end of the year everything will be finalized and up and running for your next budget year.
Minister, whenever we told people you were going to be joining us again, and thanks again for doing that, we had a question submitted about agriculture that I just want to run by you. It says, agriculture is an important component of the Ontario and Middlesex County economy, and Elgin's economy too. The agricultural community is an important foundation of what makes Middlesex County great. We face competing pressures of promoting a diversified rural economy, while also not hampering the viability of existing and future agriculture through the introduction of conflicting land uses. Can you speak to this balance as we look forward to the next 20 and 50 years? It's something clearly that both Elgin and Middlesex are struggling with a little bit as we see people moving and we see uses changing. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be a pretty complex issue to deal with. You know, with the pandemic occurring, it's pushed a lot of people out of the urban areas. There goes my dog. It's pushed a lot of people out of the urban areas into rural, because they figured out that they can actually work from home, and I think that's going to change a lot of things going into the future. So not only do we have people moving down here who aren't involved in the agri community, they're also competing and driving up prices of land and the housing, which is also going to be a concern, especially for those smaller farmers. That want to change generational switch that is always ongoing to make sure that the next generation can continue farming. So I think what you need to ensure, and I'm glad we do have a pretty rural cabinet compared to previous iterations of government over a long time. Yeah. You need policy that's flexible. You need it to be localized and make sure you have that communication with communities, municipalities, and the agricultural sector. But you also have to make sure you don't frame it as a one size fits all. I tend to watch government and things seem to be one size fits all. So in my view, a policy for rural Ontario isn't really completed until it's localized to the area. So a policy for Southwestern Ontario rural will look different than Eastern Ontario, which is going to look different than Northern Ontario. So we got to make sure when governments are making these decisions that it's flexible enough to meet the needs of those people. And to ensure that we're going to be supporting the local economies and making sure that they're available to get their produce to market and filling in the gaps that we've seen occur during this pandemic.
I can hear a lot of cheers for that answer.
We had another question, Warden, from one of our panelists or one of our attendees, and it's really getting back to investing in rural and small urban communities. This question is, with the new Ottawa DC alignment on environmental issues and the Keystone cancellation and increased carbon tax on fossil fuels, what opportunities are there to bring tax dollars back to Ontario, specifically rural areas, and to position us for the future?
Yeah, it's a tough question, and it's something that we've been trying to deal with as a government. I think since we've been elected in 2018 and formed government, we've moved quite a few of the costs that through taxes back to the people. We've reduced the tax burden that people are experiencing, both in small, medium, and large size businesses. And I think going forward, we got to look at how do we operate government smarter in regards to how we allocate our spending properly. The other item that I'll mention with regards to the environment, I have my role on the Jobs and Recovery Committee, and one of my focuses has been on technology. How do we create an environment to attract the new clean tech ideas out there that are environmentally friendly and create jobs? And then if we're able to draw those businesses back into the province or create new businesses, it'll increase the tax pool as well for the government. The more we can get the economy up and running, the more money that'll flow through the government, which is less resilience on the tax base. You're right to have a concern with the carbon tax with agriculture. I'm hearing the horror stories of the carbon tax on the drying of corn. We need to, as a province, reach out to the federal government and see what ways we can exempt certain activities that are necessary and vital to the food supply chain in this province and to jobs in rural Ontario. And they've been a little flexible on some of the items we've approached them with over the last year with the new environment minister they have, and maybe they'd be open to further conversation. And I'm sure Ernie would be right beside me at that table having that conversation to try to alleviate some of those costs. But if we can get our hydrogen strategy up and running, I think we have a huge opportunity to import a lot of clean tech technology into this province to help alleviate those costs.
We have a question, Warden. We're joined by Crispin Colvin, who's with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture and a past warden of Middlesex County. Hi, Crispin. Thanks for joining us. He says, Minister York, how can we partner with the government on environmental initiatives, and how does the government see investing in that area?
Well, it's good. Thanks, Crispin, for that question. It's good to hear from you as well. You know, we have various opportunities to have consultation. Keep your eye on the EBR posting. We have ongoing consultation with regards to potential changes or additions or improvements in our environmental policy. We do have a climate change advisory panel ongoing, and we currently are doing a impact assessment in the province. So each region by 2022 will have a breakdown of how climate change is going to be affecting their areas, which will open up a huge opportunity for municipalities to consult with their local communities to see what moves forward. You know, we do have our Made in Ontario Environment Plan as we're working to reach our Paris climate goals of 30% below 2005 levels in emission reductions. We've added some new change. We've updated it since we are accomplishing quite a bit, which will include better management of our wastewaters to support municipalities to ensure there's fewer dumps going into our lakes and rivers, reducing organic waste to the landfills to 0% by 2030. There's other opportunities. The hydrogen strategy, I announced that it was coming together. So my office is always open if you have an idea, and I'd really love, especially from the agricultural community, what aspect I found in this role that a lot of people that knock on my door want to tell me how the agriculture community should run their operations, but they've never stepped foot outside of the city of Toronto. We need those voices to be knocking on our door to say, this is how you can partner with us at the farm level to reduce your emissions and also ensure we have a sustainable environment. So doors open, just reach out. Delaney's on the call, or reach my office in Toronto, but Delaney's a lot easier to get my attention.
Minister, I know you've been reading the same newspapers as me, and you've been reading about the large urban shift that's happening to rural and small urban Ontario, including Middlesex and Elgin counties. And we had a number of questions from the participants and attendees tonight about that shift. And so I want to get your thoughts generally on that. And then also, I just want you to think about Krista Cowell's question. She says, Minister York, at the last roundtable, you talked about the opportunity for jobs that are traditionally urban and how they could migrate to rural because of online workstations. Could you please expand on that? So a lot of questions about the urban to small urban rural shift.
Well, certainly, it's an opportunity to take a hold of as there's the shift to rural areas, and I say it's an opportunity because I think it'll highlight to different levels of government the need for the improved broadband. I know our government with Minister McNaughton has made substantial investments in the broadband, but it doesn't go far enough because we still aren't going to have the entire province covered in broadband coverage. And it's really been amplified, I would say, during this pandemic with our kids having to try to do online learning and the teachers trying to teach online with the limited broadband they have. So I look at it as an opportunity that the more people we have in our rural areas, the more of an issue would actually come to have some form of result. But, you know, the downside, as I mentioned earlier, is, I mean, housing costs are shooting through the roof because it's a different market moving from Markham or somewhere around Mississauga for the price you can get for your little house to what you can buy down here. So that has the potential to lead to some bit of a housing affordability crisis that's already currently involved with our young folks, but it could expand into older generations. So we've made changes as a government to try to improve or increase the availability of housing through reducing some of the barriers so that these houses can be built. But what I'm saying about opportunity of other jobs coming down into rural Ontario, I think there's a twofold benefit to that. One is the private sector can look at and no longer have to have the head office on University Ave in downtown Toronto, and instead they can have folks not have to drive in or move into the GTA to work. You can still have the high quality people here, and they don't have to give up the rural lifestyle, and give them the opportunity to work from home, which keeps money in our area to shop and support local economies. Also might give the opportunity for those larger corporations to find land and space outside along the 401 corridor, perhaps, that is a cheaper avenue for them. The other aspect I look is it's also opening the door for government. All our ministry staff are all so focused in downtown Toronto. I was with MNRF. We did have them in Sault Ste. Marie, and I know with environment we are scattered. But with this online opportunity, it's really pushed the goalposts a lot closer to transforming the economy into allowing people to work closer to the home. And I think there's going to be opportunity. These high-paying, well-supported government jobs don't necessarily have to be focused in our big urban areas. In fact, we can actually accomplish the same thing with people living in rural areas who will actually understand the consequences of the decisions they make to rural Ontario if they're actually living in it. So again, huge opportunities. Hope it unfolds well.
And because I'm the CEO of Middlesex, I'll say it's also an opportunity to realize some revenue from potential public sale of infrastructure as well, and move those people out of those buildings downtown.
No, correct.
Warden?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what you've just left us with, I think the next few years will be very transformational for rural Ontario. There is so much opportunity that is in front of us. And I know, Middlesex, like, we're right on the cusp of being ready to just take it and run with it. And I'm excited for the next few years. I said over this whole pandemic, you can't focus on what has been taken away from us. What is it that it has provided us? And it's really provided us a lot of opportunity, not only in the private sector, but as you just said, in the public sector. And I think there's going to be huge changes in rural Ontario, which are going to be very, very exciting for all of us. So on that note, I will thank you for joining us, Minister Yurek. Jeff, it was great seeing you. We certainly do appreciate you being part of the discussion tonight, and just thankful for the time that you make for not only our councils, but for the residents in Middlesex County.
Well, thanks very much for the opportunity and the invite. I'm always enjoying conversations, and I really appreciated your time as warden. It's been quite enjoyable, and I'm really grateful for everyone that's joined in, and I want everyone to stay safe. Still have a long way to go to get through this pandemic, and be ready for the opportunities that lie ahead once we defeat this virus and get things up and rolling again.
Well said. Thank you, Minister.
Well said. Thanks very much, Jeff.
Thanks. Take care.
Yeah.
Warden, why don't you take an opportunity to mention the caucus and the work that's happening just as we finalize things here?
Yes, I was happy that Minister Elliott brought the Women's Caucus up, and she gave me the perfect segue to start talking to her about that. For those of you that are on the line, you may not be aware, but Middlesex County, we formed the first Women's Caucus of Middlesex County. We did that back in the fall, and it's an initiative that I'm extremely excited about. Middlesex County Council is as close to parity as it can be. We have 5 female members out of a possible 11. So on the caucus, obviously I'm on the caucus, as well as Ina DeViet, the mayor from Middlesex Center, Joanne Vanderheyden, the mayor from Strathroy-Caradoc, and the mayor and deputy mayor from Thames Centre, Alison Warwick and Kelly Elliott. And we had an event back in the fall, late fall, I guess it was, where we invited women across the county to let us know how they've been surviving the pandemic and sort of the challenges that they have been faced with. And we certainly learned a lot from that discussion. And we see our roles as advocates, not necessarily the doers of the work, but how we can bring people together, fill in those gaps. As I said to the minister earlier, you know, these cracks have always been there, and the pandemic and economic fallout has only highlighted them. And so looking forward to doing the work to fill those cracks in. So we're having a what we're calling a fireside virtual chat on February the 4th. It's at 7 o'clock at night. And I would invite you to share this with the women in your lives, and go to the middlesex.ca website. You'll see the information as to how to register register to the event. And basically it's going to be a very casual conversation, checking in. How are you doing? What's going on? Where are you struggling? Where are your struggles coming from? Where are your successes coming from? And we're really looking forward to hearing from the women across the county and learning their experiences during the last few months. So go to the Middlesex website, you'll get all the information as to how to register.
Warden, thank you for your leadership on that issue and the events, and thank you for co-hosting with me tonight. I just want to take a moment to thank all of the people behind the scenes that have helped us make this event possible, from our friends at Queen's Park to the ministers to our IT staff to everyone that's been a part of this tonight. It's been wonderful. And we're really excited because we've had great access to the ministers, and we really appreciate that, including a friend of ours who the warden and I have had a chance to talk to a few times. And I just think it would be great, Warden, if we let the Premier say the last word before we sign off tonight. So let's hear a little bit from the Premier, and then we'll thank everyone for joining us.
As Premier, I'm proud of what we've been doing and been able to accomplish by working together. And when this is over, we'll be ready to roll up our sleeves and ensure our communities bounce back stronger than ever before. Remember, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And we have the toughest people anywhere in the world right here in Ontario. We need everyone to stay home, stay safe, and save lives. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario.
Can't really say it any better than he can you, Bill?
No, thanks everybody for participating. We'll see you at our next roundtable. We're looking forward to it. So keep your ideas coming in for who our panelists should be, and we're looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.